Homelessness 2.0, day 51. Being pretty lazy. I haven't even cut the bacon or anything. I just put it in there. It's bacon in some pieces, but there's actually a whole ass strip that's in here too, which is funny. I kind of almost feel like I don't have enough. But correct. I don't have enough. I gotta get rid of it anyway. Where the hell did I put it? Yeah, all the way in the back. So you still got a pretty decent amount left, so I'll throw some more in there. Why not? Pretty much did like half of what I intended to do yesterday, if that. And the name of the episode, whatever you want to call it, the video, is in reference to that. Because, well, half is about where I'm getting things in life in general. So make sure that doesn't get too bad. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. My hands. Have you checked your butthole? Skid up, butt up. Tom Cardy is amazing. If you haven't watched Tom Cardy, watch Tom Cardy. He's got good shit. At about this time today, I was hoping to have a second driving lesson, but that spot got filled up last night before I responded. So I don't get that spot. That's what happens. But it's okay. I mean, you know. Because it's like 6:20ish, and I was gonna have the same driver, same car, and since it was gonna happen at night, it's whatever. But I need to cover some more of my bases in the car. They originally quoted me based on like 10, not having driven 10 years, like a 10-hour period of sessions. I'm like, there's no way in hell. Like I ain't paying $1,000 to relearn how to drive again. And then when I get in the car, and then like so much stuff is coming back to me, it's like, well, yeah, definitely not. But having another 2-hour session is still, in my opinion, a good idea. So I just have to hope to get another slot. I mean, I'm staying in LA for at least another month anyway. Like I said, I'm done here. It is time to move on to another place. So I'm starting to look at other Airbnbs for the final month. I'm trying to look at something that's going to be relatively similar in price. And I'm going to figure out, like transitional stuff, because like I said, I have to leave on the 31st. And I've got to either figure out whether or not I can go to another place on the 31st, or if I should wait a couple of days. Who knows? Because, it's 31st, it's New Year's Eve. There's probably going to be a lot of people in town. I don't know. It will probably be smart to not be in LA, especially driving in LA, come Super Bowl. Because LA is hosting the Super Bowl again this year. And if anybody has ever spent any time doing anything, they know that the Super Bowl is not only just extremely popular, but it's any major sports event is generally a fucking nightmare for that region. LA traffic's bad enough as it is. So, yeah. when February comes along, it's going to be a good idea to kind of, like if you're driving, not be in the area. You know, go to a family member's house or something like that, or just go out of town for a bit. You know, and I think honestly, to kind of like take it back to, you know, the whole like anti-work thing and you know, getting unions and various other things in place, you know, I would hope there's a lot of workers that are going to use that weekend as leverage against their employers. Like, you should do that. On those big days like that, you should get better pay by a substantial amount, like double pay. Because all they're going to do is bring in more people to work twice as hard for the same pay, and then they're going to rake in all the money. You need to be able to get something out of it. And not just a little extra, but like a lot extra. You're the investment. You're what they are investing in. They don't care about you, so you need to make it to where somebody can. Like, well, I don't know if the phrasing works, but I hope you know what I mean. Basically, the only way an employer really cares about you or shows that they care about you is if they pay you more. And if they get to rake tons of fucking dollars, if they get to rake in, you know, crap tons of profit, while you have to bust your ass because, you know, for a day or two, and you get nothing out of it, then why the hell should you even be there? It's like Black Friday. Nobody should be working Black Friday. Black Friday, as we know it as a concept, shouldn't exist. Obviously, it's already, you know, it's over with and everything, and economically, that day is no longer being concentrated into one day like it has been, because now, you know, they start with sales sooner in Thanksgiving and whatnot, and it's like, you know, times change, people change, things evolve. And, you know, I've already seen big day stuff, sales and whatnot, already in like early December, not just now at the end of December. And it still doesn't feel like the end of December, but it's whatever. Like I said, the last 2 weeks just kind of disappeared. So, like, if you work at a pizza place or a wing place or any kind of takeout, you should be getting paid much more. Not just a little bit, not an extra $1 an hour or even $2 or even 50%. You should be getting paid at least twice the amount. And then someone might be listening to me and saying, why the hell should they pay you that much? How much money are they going to actually make? Because they're probably going to make a ton. You know, employees cost so much. Yeah, of course they do. But if you can't run a fucking business and pay your people, you shouldn't be in business. Like, one of the rallying cries of so many things, whether it be political or otherwise, with regards to business in America in general, has been, you know, and especially when a company does something that some people don't like, they'll be like, a free enterprise. Like, it's almost like they're like, whoa, hold on a second, I didn't do anything wrong, free enterprise. It's like they're using it to defend their actions. And then, when you have a pandemic, and people realize, hey, I'm getting treated like absolute fucking garbage right now, and I don't deserve to be treated this way, and then people stop working, or they get laid off because of the pandemic and all this other stuff. It's not just the pandemic, but it's also so many other factors that were already in place. And then somebody's like, hey, nobody wants to work. No, it's not so much that. It's that they don't want to work for you and your shit wages anymore. Many people are using slave wages. I mean, technically speaking, there is no such thing as a slave wage because slaves, for all intents and purposes, didn't get paid. But one could also argue that slaves, in a way, got paid, because if you look at all of the slavery throughout all of history, there was some kind of, if you will, tiered payment. If you actually look at the data and you look at, throughout, like I said, throughout histories, there are some different countries, even within our own country, within plantations, etc. Some slaves were treated better, but they were still slaves. They were still beholden to their owners. They were still effectively locked in and unable to flee because of some repercussion or another. Now, one might say right now, well, you can quit your job and you're not going to go to jail for it because we don't have slave catchers anymore, which, I mean, we technically, if you think about it, we kind of do. That's what the police really are. They're just an evolution of what slave patrols were. But technically, you're right. If you quit your job, you're not going to get arrested and go to jail. But that shouldn't be the only marker of what happens when you quit a job if you're a slave. It could just be that if you quit your job, there's no safety net for you whatsoever, which is pretty common right now in America. If you lose your job, whether you quit it, somebody fires you, whatever, you have no safety net. You have to go get another job. So it would be as if you escaped your slave master and you just had to go somewhere else, to another place, to be someone else's slave. That would be a rough equivalent. It's not an exact equivalent because the situations aren't exactly the same. And that's one of the reasons why people talk about slave wages. It's because the situation isn't the same, but it's really, really similar. It's similar enough that you can draw those comparisons without a lot of effort, without a lot of thought. It's pretty fucking easy. The fact that most people are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless because they won't be able to pay for anything. Not necessarily in the situation that I'm in right now, because trying to find housing is just obnoxious. But just because you have money saved up and you can't find housing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not in a position of homelessness. I am technically homeless. I happen to be in a place that could be a house, but it's too fucking expensive. Now, if I was making $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, I mean, technically, if I wanted to live where I'm currently living right now, at the rate this place costs, over $2,000 a month, $2,200 a month, I would need to be making $6,600 a month. That is so much fucking money. So much. That's... Fuck. My brain, I can't even think about it right now. That's $66,000 plus another, what is it? $1,300. No, yeah. So I'd have to be making close to $70,000 in order to live here, which, by the way, is like what is understood to be economically right around the beginning wages of where people can be happy in life. Fuck, man. Like, they're talking about such a level of happiness that you don't really have to worry about most emergency expenditures bankrupting you, that you can save up plenty of money to go on kind of any number of vacations you want. You can, now of course, a lot of these things have something to do with, sort of just capitalist behaviors. But the thing is that it's also things like other quality of life things. You can get gym memberships to get in good shape, because now you're likely to be at a job that isn't super physically demanding either. And it's so strange, like how there's so many people who claim that things like low wage jobs, especially things like working in a restaurant, especially a fast food restaurant, that those are no skill jobs. I don't care what you think, you're wrong. First of all, you have to at least know how to do some of that shit. You've got to be trained on some scale. Although they don't like to train you because that costs more. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at your job. And if anything, it's going to make you worse at your job. And so everything that you do is going to be harder because you haven't been properly trained to understand and create a flow state, if you will. When you do things right, you know what, I'm going to just flip that. When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. That is a quote from Futurama, but in so many ways it's true, especially when it comes to working in a place like fast food. When you do it right, nobody's going to see you struggling. Nobody's going to see how much time it takes. Nobody's going to find that your actions impede theirs. But an untrained person who doesn't know what they're doing, who is unskilled in that thing that they're trying to do, is going to start being a wrench in the machine, if you will. They are not going to be part of a well-oiled machine. They're going to be sand in the whole fucking thing. And it's going to wear down everybody else. And so proper training gets everything working better. So the people who work together don't feel like they have to work as hard. Because the person who's doing the job that hasn't been trained isn't busting their ass just to get to baseline. And then the other people that they're potentially affecting in one way or another aren't also having to bust their ass just to get to baseline, which is very normal in the fast food industry. And I know that I've been talking a lot about fast food, but that's one of those things that people love to criticize for some reason. They're like, only teenagers work them, even though I've mentioned before that teenagers are at school at certain times of the day, and what about everybody else? What about the people who are working there when teenagers are at school? It's opposition number one. That's counterpoint one, if you will. And it's like, there's so many baseless arguments about just treating people better by paying them more. And that's really all the baseline that a lot of people are asking for. Is simply treat people better by paying them better. Why is that such a hard concept to grasp? And why is it that I seem to only be talking about these things? Well, it's not the only thing that I talk about. But it is very common because it's associated with being homeless. I'm one of the lucky few, if you will, that right now I still have plenty of money saved up. Now, the money that I have saved up, the vast majority of it, is locked in mutual funds. And I'm going to have to pull out even more of that before the end of this month, so that's going to affect my 2021 income. However, and because it's mutual funds, it's influenced by the stock market. And so for me, my income is directly affected by the stocks, the world of the stock markets. But that's not the economy. That's part of it, but it's not it's the only part of it. And it's not necessarily the only part that matters. Um, you know, if we can't take care of our people, we don't have people. You know, and I'm not necessarily saying it's even a good thing that we just keep people around. But note that if you don't pay people better, if you don't treat people better, if you don't give people a safety net, then not only are they going to die off, but they're also not going to continue breeding. And I'm not even saying those things are necessarily bad. But for those of you out there who might happen to be watching this, which is unlikely anyway, but if you happen to be watching this and you happen to think that we really need to take care of, we need to make sure that our society, our way of life, whatever our capitalist interest, our economy, either the stability of our internet, our nation, blah, 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 matter, a lot of those things that you want rely on actual people existing. And so, maybe you should take care of the people that not only exist, but will potentially exist. Because if you don't, the thing you care about the most will start to crumble. You know, the T-Rex was one of the last animals to effectively die off, despite it being at the top of the food, for the most part, top of the food chain. I mean, you know, it's more metaphorical than it is overly literal, but top-level predators took longer to die off when it came to the extinction of the dinosaurs. The reason why is because their food was able to last a little longer, despite their food maybe not being able to eat as much, because they simply just existed. They had the mass, and so they could, you know, and they were, my understanding is, you know, T-Rexes, for instance, were scavengers in a lot of ways, or at the very least approached scavenging if necessary. So even if the bottom of the food chain dies, those right above it aren't going to immediately die. They'll slowly die of starvation. And then those above them will slowly die of starvation. And those above them will slowly die of starvation. And so by the time those at the top start to actually see what's really happening, it's too late. There might always be a bigger fish, but in reality, it is in the bigger fish's best interests. It behooves them to take care of not only just the people, not just the fish that they feed on, but the entire ecosystem they live in. Because if they don't, while they won't be the first to feel the effects of starvation and death, they will definitely feel it. Have fun.